welcome again, Steve. A quick shout out to our sponsors, Brian Curl Basketball. Thank you, Brian. Greatest programs in all of Queensland, if not all of Australia. Also, a big thank you to Chris Weir from FIT Education. Without you two guys, this podcast would be done with coffee cans and string.
Yeah.
We have a great guest here.
Oh, mate,
Very special guest.
This is a storyteller of one of the best.
One of the best, and the best that I've been around.
And I've had the pleasure of knowing since, thinking this back ticket, this is 89.
That'll be right.
Anyway, that is Wayne Hemming is
Yes.
joining us for this podcast. And Wayne, anytime you feel before questions get hurled your way and you want to blurt anything out, as if you have Tourette's, go right ahead.
Very well, Bruce.
We're gonna start with shout outs. First, Vale, Daryl Pierce. I had the good fortune of being a teammate. In 1982, Daryl came over from the 36ers to the North Melbourne Giants. Great guy, and just a sad day in the basketball community. Rest in peace, Iceman, known as the Iceman. Another, I guess this is a shout out or a Daily Mail. I just read on social media that Kendrick Davis from the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix is out for the remainder of the season.
We'll clarify that Kendrick Davis plays for Adelaide.
I'm thinking of Dennis Walton Jr. I did do my research, Wayne.
Yeah, just helping you out.
Were you going to say they all look? Oh no, you weren't. Anyway, I got that wrong. It is. What's his name again?
His name is Walton Jr. That's his maiden.
What's his first name? You've done your. Is it Dennis?
Derek.
Derek.
Not spelled D-E-R-E-K, which is the short way.
The stupid way.
It's the stupid way.
the
D-E-R-R-I-C-K.
Well, anyway.
Right? If you've ever seen that skit on Saturday Night Live with the guy that says that nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
That is a cracker skit.
Anyway,
He'd be
my
very old, wouldn't he,
apologies.
from the Waltons family.
I don't know if he actually has any history.
You mean related to
A
Bill
lot
and
of
Randy?
the Walton family on TV were probably from a slightly different part of the US.
Anyway, my apologies to the Phoenix and to Derek.
Well, that's a tough loss for them because
Huge.
I actually think, my opinion, that they were a sleeper in the end of this league, which we're getting towards a pointy end. They have come from starting the season with 5 losses, and now they're amongst potential. They won't make the top 2, but they're a very good chance.
Got a chance to get in the 4.
They
They
do.
rely on somebody to free fall. And one other, I don't know if it's a shout out or it's really probably more Daily Mail. Do you have any shout outs, Steve, before I jump into Daily Mail?
No, I want to have a shout out to Johnny Riley.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, because I happened to have an opportunity to have a little sanger with Johnny today because they're playing the Bullets tomorrow night. And Johnny, he's just such a good guy. And he greeted me with this big smile. And I said, Johnny.
Do you owe John money?
Hey?
Do you owe?
I said, Johnny, is it your TV persona that you're an angry man? And he just giggled at me. He said, you got to do what you got to do. And, because we've discussed how much we love Johnny, but he's got his in his head. It's just part of the circus, Steve.
No, Bruce never did that.
Never did it, man.
He was always an angry man.
And whenever I see John looks angry sometimes. I think, Johnny, tell me.
He does.
He was just laughing when I was teasing him, and
I'm sorry I missed that.
Yeah, he's such a good guy, and he's got both of his boys playing in college. One in senior, one in I couldn't tell you the names.
Utah State?
Yeah, one in Colorado somewhere.
I know. Yeah,
He's from Gonzaga, isn't he?
Johnny's singlet's retired in Gonzaga, so he knows. I'm very fortunate to know a bunch of people that spent time at Gonzaga, so he knows some same
Got
people.
some connections.
Yeah. So we had a good chat, and he also said, sad about Mike Mackay and just said what a tip-top bloke he was.
Daryl Pearce?
Daryl Pearce, sorry. What did I just say?
Mike
Yeah.
Mackay.
The wrong guy. Yeah.
I might
Sorry-
leave right now,
Sorry,
thank
Mike
you.
Mackay.
Thanks for coming.
We-
You can see this.
We
I
haven't
thought I
even,
was going to be the idiot.
yeah, we haven't even had a drink yet. Anyway, let's get into our guest.
I only got one thing that I read this on social media, and I was flabbergasted if it's true that the league is going to. This is what the article was: that the league should pay Bryce Cotton to keep Bryce Cotton from leaving the NBL.
I disagree with that.
Well, I think the comments all disagree. If you're going to do that for Bryce Cotton, do it for every team.
Look, there's no doubt he's probably the star attraction of the league, but the league is made up of many players, many great players.
And we've
if
had-
you go out on a limb and pay a bloke's salary for the NBA, you're asking for trouble.
Mate,
It's just a dumb decision.
he is a freak, but
Oh,
he's 31.
At least I'm not sure how
Yeah,
old he is.
he's been
Producers-
playing, I think, 8-9 years, 100%. He's been playing
Yeah.
that long in the league.
and getting better.
Getting better.
So I
He's
asked
very,
Johnny that
very
today.
good.
I said, mate, what have you put in Cotton's water? And it was interesting, his answer. He said, it's the other players around him that have bought into Bryce. He said they're allowing him, and they're not trying to fight what he's. He didn't go deep into it, but he was just saying he's always had good teammates, but this squad is special. And we talked about Doolittle. I think, and again, when I was talking about he's special, and he agreed. He said just a great human as well, as is Windler. He said Windler is special
And
as well.
Wagstaff's special. Jesse
Yeah, so
Wagstaff.
he's the glue guy. Wagstaff, what, 450 games or something?
Yeah.
You know,
A lot of games.
And still productive. You know?
yeah. And he said he walks to his games. He lives that close to the, it's 800 metres from
Who?
Johnny, where he lives.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he said I walk and, think about it, gives him ready to coach. So, I really enjoyed seeing Johnny today. It was special. So, good Toowoomba boy like me.
Well, I know because I went over to Gonzaga, and he was teammates with Paul Rogers. We all remember Paul Rogers.
Yeah.
And worked. I recruited him hard, and then we got him in here. He was Rookie of the Year. He had a great playing career for both.
He played in
the
Adelaide.
NBL and for Adelaide. Where else did he play? Did he play at South Sydney? The Razorbacks?
Townsville? Did he play in Townsville? I'd have to look up.
Maybe
See, this
it-
is us doing our research.
Yeah, look, I can't help you there.
Yeah,
God damn it,
but
we
Johnny,
brought you in
I know
just
it's a
for
big
that.
unit.
actually, Lyndon Briefies happened to say to him today that his Wikipedia, it was Billy Ellis. And he said, I'm not trying to stalk you, but I looked at your Wikipedia today and they don't have in there that you played in Australia. And I go, Billy, Wikipedia is updated by people telling them. And I said, Johnny, did you even know you had a Wikipedia? And he said, no, I didn't. He hasn't been Googling himself. So, but he's such a... You just realise how much he loves the game.
He loves the game. He does.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great asset to our league, that because he had a very promising career in the NC2A basketball. He was the associate head coach at Santa Barbara.
Yeah. And he told me today that he said Bruce Palmer was the only guy that came and worked him out in the US, and that meant a shitload to him. And that's why he chose you.
No, well, they lasted a year. And
I can believe that.
Hey, let's get into our guest.
Shall we? Come on, we bring him
do a
all
lot
the
of
way up to the
pivoting.
studio.
Do you know your basketball? You
I
pivot?
know you pivot and you pick and roll and you screen and
So
all that stuff.
Well, if I'm going to pick and roll, I'll do that in the men's room.
yeah.
Go ahead, mate. Let's get it on. We got a lot of questions for
Wayne Hemming, and we will call you Ticker through
Yep,
this
that's fine.
because that's how I know you. Ticker, his journalist powers lots of sports. I would describe you as a league icon, though. As league has been your backbone of your journalistic
Yeah.
career.
Yep.
But you were very fortunate in around 1982, and we just didn't have the annals with us today to confirm that. And your brain's older than mine, and you couldn't remember that. Yeah. So 1982 to 2015, covering the NBL. That's a pretty impressive.
That was easy for you to say. Who were your colleagues in that time?
Oh, look, they were the early days. I mean, Brett Harris was there.
Sure.
Was it Mike Horan?
Yep. Stephen Howell?
Yeah,
Does that
Stephen
name ring a bell?
Howard. And there was a really good bunch of Brisbane journos, Jimmy Tucker, Paul
What a
Malone.
great guy.
And the procession just followed right through to Gary Legg, who was
Where's
later.
Leggy today?
Leggy's doing his thing as a jockey agent and
Is he?
still involved in racing. Great bloke.
That's
terrific
good.
bloke.
He'll finally have some guys to look up to.
Well, yeah. So, no, there was a quality pool of basketball riders, and I think in Brisbane, the magic was not so much the game, to be honest, was Brian Curl and the free shirts out of the back of his car at Auchenflower and the tickets for your family. But it wasn't hard to get hooked on.
But Tico, think about where rugby union was at that stage.
Yeah.
It was amateur. And the Brisbane Broncos, when were they born?
Well, they weren't around till '88.
Yeah, so here's a period of time where professionally in Brisbane, it was cricket. Rugby union was amateur. The Broncos, I mean, obviously the A grade and all that sort of stuff was
Oh
very...
yeah, the rugby league
Yeah,
had a big following at
massive.
at BRL at Suncorp Stadium. You get 25
Yeah,
at
absolutely.
Lang Park, I should say. 20. You get 25-30,000 to the match of the round on a Sunday. It was fabulous.
And mate, I was a kid
but-
growing up in Bundaberg, and you had 2 channels, and you watched the league, with Dad on a Sunday afternoon.
But
guaranteed.
basketball was the ticket in Brisbane from the mid '80s, early '80s, right until the Broncos arrived and took over the show with
Well, it was interesting, wasn't it? Because the Bullets evolved out of Auchenflower
yeah
to Chandler
to Boondall.
to Boondall. And Boondall at the time was state of the art. Like we'd never had a facility like Boondall until then. And I read in the paper this week that
They're going to pull it down.
someone was saying I'll pay to pull it down. The Hutchinson builder.
Yeah.
He said I'll pay for them to knock it down.
But there's nowhere else in Brisbane that can accommodate acts and world class.
Yeah, we need to build something else.
Well, we either need to build something or throw a bit of money into improving the road system around there, and
But it's
because
still-
it's a good stadium. It's
great.
It is.
for concerts.
And I played out of there, and it just didn't seem a far way to travel to go play. But for me to go watch out here where I live at the Gabba, South City Square, ladies.
That's right.
Yeah, and I just find it a little bit harder to get out there.
Of course, it's not easy. It's always been the big bugbear getting out to Boondall, but you'll go anywhere if you're a fan, I think, or you should.
I mean, they're getting bigger crowds not
But
getting at Nissan
I
because
can still recall the days when Chris Elder, the mushroom,
yeah.
would drop from the ceiling in front of 10 or 12,000 lunatic fans, and the entertainment there was fabulous.
Mushy was. Do you remember Mushy running
We should
around?
get him on the show one day.
Yeah. And I remember we were against Perth in the grand final, which we lost in 1990.
Yeah.
And
That's right.
they actually let more, which would never be allowed today. They let people sit in the where the stairs are.
Oh, right.
Yeah, they let people sit in the stairs just enough to have one person be able to go to the dunning, up. It was, they'd be never allowed to do that from a workplace health space today.
That was probably one big game I missed in all those years because I had another assignment I was in England
Oh, did you
covering the
miss that?
1990 Kangaroo Tour,
Yeah.
which was one of my career highlights. Fabulous time, but yeah, I know I think Brisbane lost 2-1 and
We did.
Rucker was named MVP,
MVP,
of
yep.
the league.
Yep.
Andre Moore was the rebounding.
They had
rebounder.
they had Crawford. They had Grace.
Oh, they had a wonderful team.
Yeah, they had.
They got us in 3 games. We had the game won. And we took a shot that we didn't need to take. We could have just held the ball, run out the clock. But
And you got to name names.
it was Davy Graham,
Okay, Davey.
and who's great. You know, he did so many good things for us. It was just an ill-advised shot.
Oh, well.
They raced down, got it, and then beat us in overtime.
Well, there was a bit of that on the
I think
weekend.
Ben Hunt dropped a kick-off in the grand final that cost the Brisbane Broncos a premiership, but they wouldn't have been there that year if it wasn't for Ben Hunt winning
Mate,
3 or 4 games. And
I was devastated.
As teammates, as coaches, do you really look back and write that guy's name down and say, I'll never put him in my team again? Or
absolutely not.
do
No.
you understand?
Mate, I'm so happy. I think bringing Ben Hunt back to the Broncos
it's a great
is.
move.
How old's Ben Hunt?
He's 32, but he's got 3 or 4 years left in him.
Yeah,
He's a quality player.
and you're getting feedback coming via, all the various mediums that we have today.
Yeah.
And they say the moment he has arrived at the training practice, it's like,
Different.
No, he'll make a difference.
yeah, like all the young guys are just
A
like.
leader of men.
He's a leader, mate.
Mate, he was so good in that grand final. Did I want to throw lots of beer at him when he dropped that? Yes, I did.
Yeah.
But that guy has won State of Origin games for us.
Yeah.
He's just, I can't ever criticise him. The one thing he did wrong, but he's got a chance now because we have a half decent squad,
Oh, we have a very decent squad.
and with his potential leadership out there. I mean, as you know, like
For our listeners,
we're talking
Ben
about
Hunt's
rugby league.
coming from where?
St George Dragons. He's been there for several years.
Wow.
He started as a 16-year-old at the Broncos, and he was groomed to replace Alan Langer at some point of time. And he's a super player. He's a world-class player, and he's going to be very good for him.
So did he play alongside Darren Lockyer?
Yes, he did.
He did, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I'll be following more avidly this season.
Yeah.
than last.
Tickle
I just
and
got to
got
keep
our
a
fingers
running
and
score
toes
of
crossed.
how many of those league guys are in jail
No,
today.
they got a great roster, as you would say, Bruce. Their starting 13 is impeccable. They've got so much youth, speed, skill, everything you want, and their forwards are. But they're pretty brutal. And,
New coach.
and a new coach, a new coach.
Yeah.
From your school of discipline, from your school of, train hard, work
Wasn't
hard.
Kevy Walters that?
He
Well,
had three,
Kevy
4 years.
was much loved by everybody, but he had a few failings in that department, I would think.
We all do, yes.
I don't know, I mean, players talk and all the rest of it. Kevy was well liked, he was a good coach, but Michael Maguire is different.
And he's hard nosed.
He's hard.
He coached and beat us in the State of Origin this year.
Yeah.
And you just
Coached
get the
New Zealand
feedback.
to a big win over Australia. So
Yeah, and you
can
get
coach.
feedback is that all the New South Wales players were just saying, his nickname is Madge. They just said he is just, they just played for him. And you know what I mean? Like when you're talking State of Origin, Rugby League, AFL Grand Final, Rugby League Grand Final, you're talking about the best players. And,
Elite.
And it's only that small thing that whether, they buy into what the coach says, right? Mm-hmm. And all those teams that you've coached over the years and, Bruce, can you just remind me, because I know you'd like praise.
I work well with praise and encouragement.
Did you win a world championship?
Yes.
What year was that?
1997.
And what were some of the great players?
recently.
Chris Anstey, Sam McKinnon, Simon Dwight, Aaron Traher.
Oh,
Matty Nielsen was only 17 years old.
Wonderful.
wow.
We
Can
had
I
a good
ask you,
squad.
Bruce, Sam Mack, would he have made it in the NBA?
Yes. Yeah.
Why didn't he, do you think?
Just a different era.
You got to. It has to be the right program. I think perhaps his, catch and shoot threes could have been better. Definitely, he was the best athlete that I had seen since a healthy Danny Morsu. Am I pronouncing Danny's last name?
That's a big rap. Dr.
Morsu.
Who? Danny Morsu.
Well,
some of
Danny
us-
is probably,
Danny
there was
who?
nothing like him
Dr.
athletically. He was a strong, fast, powerful. That was Sam.
Yeah.
And
Do you know that Sam won MVP and also Defensive Player in the same
In
year?
the same year, yeah. He was a star, mate. He was a gun.
That's
He was a guy.
like has that been done in the NBA? Jordan, did he do both?
Well, he would have.
I can't remember.
He would have, mate.
But that's
He
you're
should have.
talking.
He won the
You're talking
chocolate-
about
He won the chocolate, mate. He's
the
Jordan
rarest
win
thing.
everything.
We're very lucky that Sam is a friend of ours. I just think at that time, it's a bit like the world has evolved in terms of getting closer to the NBA. Like Detlef Schrempf was the first outside of the USA to play in the NBA. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is my research correct?
yeah, your research is spot on.
Yeah, so that's now we're talking 1986, 85, 86.
Did you do your research on this, or are you just
Yeah,
pulling
I just
dates
happened-
out of your?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, are you proud of me?
Okay, I believe you.
I'm impressed. Wayne's impressed.
Okay, so let's.
I
what
want
I'm
to get
saying
into the
is,
ticker
like,
story.
The point is, there's so many more non-US playing in the NBA. So in Sam's years, like when he competed at an Olympic Games against the USA, there would have only been a handful of NBA players playing in other teams. Whereas the last Olympics was the most non-American players who were playing in the NBA. Like even Australia had like 9 players, didn't we? That were all in the NBA. And
In that tournament in '97, so of course Chris got drafted.
yeah,
Argentina, who were a handful, and we were lucky we beat them on an Aaron Trahair 3 in the semifinals with a second to go.
yeah.
They
Great
had
shooter,
Pepe
Aaron
Sanchez,
Trahair.
who played with Miami. They had a guy named Ginobili,
Oh shit.
Alberto,
Yeah, right.
and then Turkey had a guy named Turkan who played with New York Knicks. There would have been the U.S. had Andre Miller, Pat Garrity, not the guy that shot Billy the Kid. They had a slew of NBA players.
Have you ever shared with the audience some of your impersonations when you're just talking about Billy?
Can we save that for
Yeah.
Another, okay, yeah, because
Yeah, I certainly don't want to be
your Billy
Kids
upstaged.
didn't come all the way here
your
to
Billy
hear me do
Stewart.
it.
I didn't come here all the way to get upstaged.
His Billy Stewart though is special.
Yeah,
Anyway,
and I'm even better at Jimmy Stewart.
Oh, Jimmy.
Come on, I want to dig
okay,
deep
let's go back
into
to
the ticker story.
Okay. Question for you, Ticker. You actually, I know you still, at times, you sort of, what do you call the word? You're just doing a little bit on the side, right? A little bit of side hustle.
Insulting?
Bit of freelancing.
Freelancing, yeah.
Okay. But so you're still involved in sport today. You have a lens in terms of seeing things, talking to people.
Of course.
How do you compare the Wally Lewis, Leroy Loggins era of sport to where sport is today?
Well, look, a great person once told me, don't compare, just enjoy.
That's a good answer.
So while I do compare, I don't do it publicly. I do it in a pub or a club. But let me say that Leroy Loggins was the Wally Lewis of basketball.
Without a doubt.
If you needed a game to be won, just make sure it got to Leroy, and he'd win it for you. He was...
Well, Curly said that when Curly was here. Curly said exactly that to us, Ticker. He said he didn't make the game complicated for the team that he had when they won. He said, I didn't have to draw up a fancy play because it was essentially the guys that were going to win it got the ball.
Yeah.
And that
He could take a game by the neck. He could grab hold of a game either end of the court. He was magical to watch. He floated like Jordan, not as far as
I
Jordan.
would say who had the players who had the biggest impact in generating interest was Leroy Loggins. Cal a little bit.
Cal definitely is up there in the
And then
top.
after that was Andrew.
You know,
I
Gazy,
don't see
without a doubt.
anybody. I know Bryce Cotton is a well-respected and rightfully so, but I don't see anybody. Certainly nobody. Prather could be, but you gotta stick for a while.
we did have Derek Rose. We did have James Crawford. They were impressive, but you're right. That Leroy just was like a head and shoulders, just above everyone.
Well, he wasn't
there
the best
was some
import in the league. He's probably the best player in the league that we've had. Bryce Cotton knocking on the door a little bit, but to do what Leroy did, I think he played 580 games.
Come to a stride, stop, and pivot real quick. You said Derek Rose. We never had a Derek. You mean Robert
Rose.
And we owe an apology from our last podcast.
that we didn't mention him.
We
as
did
best
not mention
defensive.
him as on the all-time 5 best defenders.
Thank you for that pickup.
I know you're
going to ask me. So the players that stood out for me over my career were clearly Scott Fisher,
Yes.
who you knew exceptionally well.
Yeah.
It was
I
so
agree with
tough, so tough.
Just a
anything
man.
he did. Darryl McDonald, D-Mac was great. Leonard Copeland, Rob Rose, who we mentioned.
Yep.
Did we mention Rob Rose?
Yeah, we did. He did. I just sometimes on the podcast try to say things and
of
see
course,
if Bruce picks up.
Yeah, that's
It's
right.
part-
His real name is Derek
It shows.
Robert Rose.
Yeah.
And Al Green was. You can't leave him out of discussion.
And you could have a good argument about him being in the all-time defensive.
Yeah.
If we're going to go
and
with Derek Rucker's 16, or we just
We
want to name
sometimes
8.
raise and
Yeah.
like there's 10, and these days they can put 12.
Yeah,
I'm a
10,
big
10.
not fan of 12,
No,
but anyway.
why
We're just trying to work out what Derek's thinking when he picks the top 15.
Well,
Is he
just
picking
wanted
a
to make
rugby
sure
team?
he covered all bases, and But let me ask you, there was one import I've left out of there that you guys can guess. Oh shit! Sorry, cut that out. He played in the mid to late 80s. He had a few issues, but he was a super athlete.
You talking about Jim Foster?
Uh-huh.
Owen Wells.
No,
Dwayne McLean.
no, and you went on the Bullets tour with him in 1989.
Oh, Joe Hurst.
Jumping Joe Hurst.
Yeah, Joe.
He
Joe
had
was-
some skills.
Well,
He could jump.
His very
Well,
first season in the league was his best.
88.
Well, I think
Yeah.
his problem was that he got high above the ring, and he got high.
So I was on that tour.
well, here we go.
Yeah, we
He got into your stash. Okay.
No, I mean he could get high. He could get right above the ring.
He was an elevator man.
He was an elevator.
we had a game. Remember we played at Kansas.
Yeah, that
So
was.
this was Kansas Jayhawks. So this is like basketball royalty.
They were tops.
Yeah, the venue, just like I walked in there and you just go, oh my God, we'd get strapped up before the game, your own individual strap. This is our first game of this tour. And sitting at the end are 5,000 drunk students, right? And I walk out and I look like a rugby league player with a pair of high tops on, and we go down the court, and I think there was a white guy, his last name was Randall. Big.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he big guy. And you go out to shoot around an hour before the people are really coming in, and you're there. And we come in, and here's all these students sitting on the aluminium benches, and they're drunk. and you go up, you're trying to be cool and put the ball between your legs and shoot the ball, and they're going, "Hey, you, that's the worst fucking jump shot I've ever seen." They're just abusing you, and you're just trying to be cool, and then eventually you go, "I can't handle this, I've got to come back in." Anyway, we warm up for the game. Joe Hurst is starting, and we push the ball. I clearly wasn't starting. I was sitting at the end of the bench where I spent a lot of time on that tour. But anyway, that's Brian's problem.
The sulking spot.
Yeah. Anyway, a shot went up, missed, and then Joe Hurst, seriously, I'm not joking, his head was above the rim and he's just gone whack, and the whole stadium just went quiet. They beat us by 40.
It was his only points of the match.
But that was just, those trips to the US were just special.
Hey, I'm sure Wayne doesn't mind you interrupting.
He was
him at
there.
any
He
time.
was there.
You had Joe Hurst on your list of all time.
Yeah, good job.
No, I didn't have him on the list of all time.
Oh.
But I had him on the list of being
Entertainment.
an entertainer, and like you say, he was short-lived, but I enjoyed the season or two.
He was a
That he
co-MVP with Mark Davis in '88.
was
in his
he?
first, was it the first year though, I think?
Yeah, that was his first year. He was,
And was he in
Dave
Hobart?
Atkins. Hobart, that's right.
Yeah.
There's a great story about that tour. I hope you don't mind me. It's not the underpants story of me losing my luggage to Guam and you giving me a pair of underpants, which I wore for 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Because
and-
no other bloke on the Bullets tour would give me anything.
Yeah.
But-
That's the sort of guy I am.
You're a brave man,
Yeah.
Taker. They're wearing Stevie's
But
hand-me-down undies.
look, Curly loves to tell the story about that tour of Derek Rucker actually roomed with me the first night. We picked him up and he was an insomniac and he wouldn't sleep. And I was talking to him about State of Origin at 3 and 4 in the morning, and I couldn't go on, so I crashed. And later in the tour, we went to watch a CBA tryout. I don't know where it was. We had a beautiful steak beforehand with Curly and Dave Claxton. I love you, Clacker. And we went and watched this guy, Andre Moore, play. And he was okay. He was good in the paint and he could block a few shots and get up above the ring. So one night, Andre had joined the team and they played. And towards the end of the tour, Curly said to me, "Dicker, what do you think?" And Curly took Andre Lafleur on the tour. He was a tough,
Fantastic
hard-nosed guard.
Fantastic player.
the Gold Coast.
Fantastic bloke.
Great player. And he said, "Who do you think I should take, Rucker or Lafleur?" And I said, "Well, I won't tell you what I said, but anyway."
My name didn't come up in that conversation?
No, yours was next. Then he said, what did you think of Moore? I said, "Well, this is what I think of Moore." So anyway, Curly tells the story that I told him to pick Lafleur and that Moore was too soft. And no matter how I plead my innocence, Curly still tells it.
Well,
and
mate,
I said to him, "Mate, you're mad if you don't take Derek, and Andre Moore will kill him." That's what I said.
Well, no,
So
but-
I would have thought you needed at least one night to sleep with Lafleur, right? To compare
didn't.
the conversations throughout the night. Before you can make a decision like that.
You slept with Derek on the first night. That's
No, we didn't sleep.
Oh,
I told you he was an
So
insomniac.
it was-
shout out to Andre Lafleur,
Well, I won't say
tough player.
He led the
I won't
NC2A.
say that the morning that morning that after Derek arrived that you were supposed to train in the morning.
I
And
did make training.
You made training, but only because Derek called you and
So
said
I just happened
you had a hospitality
to
family.
like the fans and they enjoyed my company.
Yeah.
And this is because we had to train for 2 days before we actually played the game, and I just got to meet some of the constituents in town,
Of course.
the fans. And I stayed out a little bit late, Bruce, and I had called Derek because I was at a private party, and I called a hotel and my room, and Derek answered, and I said, "Derek, this is Steve. Can you please ring this number and make sure I get..."
And Derek said, "Steve who?"
Anyway, he apparently called me and I answered the phone. I don't remember. him calling. And then I managed to come up the back because I've come into the hotel and here's Curly, Clacker, Freddie Van Dodgen all sitting in the foyer. And I'm like, oh, shit. So I climb up the fire exit.
Jeez Louise. Spider-Man.
I didn't mean you to tell the whole dob yourself in.
Because I was just trying to get some dirt on the team. That's all I was out doing.
Yeah.
And then anyway, I barge into the room and here's Derek sitting on the end of the bed, fully ready to go to training, like waiting to the very last second that I came in. So I get there just in time. I go, mate, you didn't call me. And he goes, yes, I fucking did. And anyway, so we get down and I know you're shocked. I may have had a couple of beverages and we're doing training. Oh. And Derek throws passes like bullets. And he threw one and it goes straight through my hands and hits me in the nose and I'm bloody... And so I go to Derek, mate, what do you think this is, mate? This is Australia. I'm fucking hungover. Will you not throw passes like that to him? And he's like, the first Australians he's met is going, oh my God. Anyway, it was a great trip.
Nice roomy.
Great trip.
Yeah.
So can we get back, file this back towards Wayne?
Yeah, totally. I know. I feel it's been a bit focused to be mean about it.
Well, it tends to get that way. It kind of, mate. When I met you, were writing for AP.
AAP.
AA, which stands for the Australian Associated Press.
That's correct.
Did you ever have a rag? Did you ever do a newspaper?
No, I worked for. Actually, how it started was. I wasn't really good at high school, and I preferred to be at the TAB as a 16-year-old. So I left school. My father died when I was quite young, 16. So I had to get a job to help Mum with the rent. And my brother was a surfer and just took off. Paul, God rest your soul. But anyway, I walked in off the street to a building on the corner of Pitt Street and Castle Ray Street in Sydney, and it just happened to be, I was just looking for a job. It happened to be the Daily Telegraph. So I walked upstairs and I walked in, all these kids were around, and I said, is there any jobs here? And the guy said, there's a copy boy job going if you want it. And copy boys were just making coffee and putting money in the parking meters and getting lunches for guys. But anyway, that led to me getting a job in the sports department. And that's how it all started. That's for me how it all...
That is
and then I went
amazing.
and worked for a company called AUP, which was Australian United Press, which was taken over by AAP in 1970, and I worked for them till 2012, and then I worked for
So that's
Queensland
42
Regional
years.
News.
42 years.
Yeah.
Fuck.
40 odd years, and they robbed me of superannuation,
Those bastards.
Yeah, but anyway, they gave me a great life, mate. From a kid that really had no education and nothing to really look forward to, I ended up travelling the world. I did Olympic Games in Atlanta, I did Olympic Games in Sydney, and I did a lot of rugby league tours all over the world.
Wayne, your craft, you're writing for a guy with only and you were humbly saying that limited education. Was that just, how did you get that good at it?
I had very good sub-editors that used to constantly correct my copy. I was known as the B-man, the Brisbane Broncos, the Brisbane Bullets, Brisbane Bandits, the Brisbane whatever.
The Bandits. And what are the soccer?
The Dakio Dolphins and all. Look, I did every sport in Brisbane, including golf, cricket. I covered.
So how'd you get from Sydney to Brisbane? How did that happen?
I just moved up, mate. I was married. I wanted to have a family, and it was too expensive in Sydney. And to be honest, there was a lot of gun journalists down in Sydney, and I thought, well, this could be my opportunity. And when I came up, the first assignment I had was the Commonwealth Games. So
was the late Peter Coggoy one of those?
Yeah,
was he New South Wales?
He was.
Sydney?
He was a very good basketball writer.
Yeah,
he loved the game.
He
was probably his favourite passion, I would think. But look, I got lucky. I did a kangaroo tour.
Yeah, you got lucky, but you still got to have the the personality, the skill to tell a story.
Look,
And-
one of my greatest foibles was that I used to get people's names wrong. Constantly.
Well, welcome to the show.
I called Michael Voss from the Lions?
Yes.
Yeah.
Andrew Voss, who's the cricket commentator. When John Kerwin was playing for the All Blacks against the
Wallabies.
I wrote the story. It got through, and I don't know how it got through. John Kerwin, the great All Black winger. Now, John Kerwin was an arthritic horse trainer, 80-year-old Eagle Farm horse trainer. And we get this message from NZPA saying, "Who the hell is John Kerwin?" Or Eric Kerwin. I said, "What are you talking about? He's your greatest rugby union winger." They said, no. So I had this habit of, the subs at AAP in Sydney had a book that's about 5 inches, 6 inches thick of all my typo errors and that sort of thing. But
that doesn't
I got
matter.
through it.
But the story was still there because they published the
Well,
story.
I used to produce, mate. I had to produce 3 stories a day on whether it was basketball, rugby league, cricket, tennis. I had to do that every day, 5 days, and then go and cover sports and write previews and all the rest of it. So I just produced.
No writer's block with you.
No.
But I thought I got to give you some credit, and again, those guys during that era, Michael Horan, I was close with.
Harris.
Harris was really good.
Yeah.
I thought Andrew Johnson was really good. They had that magazine back then, and Gorgon and I had what was it called? I can't remember the name of it. Basketball Weekly.
Basketball Weekly, that's a good...
And that's a good name,
That's a
whether
good
it
name,
was the right name or not. But to get the story and capture the game and the turning point of the game, or the turning points of the game, I thought you were a master. The
I
rest
appreciate that. I can't admit to being an expert on the game, but I understood it.
But people don't want to, like you hear us talk.
You don't clog
You
it
hear
up.
us talk on this podcast, and we'll talk X's and O's, and you've heard us at a pub having a beer when we get into conversation. But that's not what the people reading the paper. They don't.
Yeah.
You can't expect them. Like what's the point of the NFL putting all their plays in paper? No one would understand.
You've got to educate people, mate.
You've got to tell a story, and the story is building up. Oh, that happened at the end of the first quarter when such and such did this, and that changed the momentum of the game.
Yeah, but you're right. In those early '80s, and one thing that Brian and Peter Blucher, is that his name?
Peter Blucher. Yeah,
Right.
Bluch.
They were Ronnie Bongetti. They were really good at promoting the game,
Yeah.
not just here in Brisbane, but the league.
Well, we haven't mentioned the doyen, have we? Buddy.
Oh, bodies.
Buddy Nosh. We were
Just-
giving
We normally
him
bring
credit.
him up most games.
Yeah.
I mean, he's still doing it, and there's no one better. I love his blog. I love his podcast. And if you want to know anything about women's basketball, he's the
Yeah.
guy. And he's carrying that torch for women's basketball. But did you have a sense, or did your colleagues or superiors say, hey, we also need you guys to help educate, right, the audience?
Yeah, because
on the
basketball
game?
would have been foreign to
We
all
weren't
your
on
editors.
TV then.
No, that was never really an agenda. The agenda was to sell the game,
Okay.
promote the game, and just get people interested. But you didn't have to do that in Brisbane through the 80s right to the 90s.
This was the big ticket.
You couldn't get a ticket. You could get them early when they gave away lots of when they first moved to Boondall. But mate, basketball was the game. There wasn't anything else except for the Broncos about late 80s.
Now, be
Late
honest. Have you been to a Bullets game this year?
80s. You want me to be honest?
Yes.
Mate, I covered the Brisbane Bullets for 25 years.
No invite?
Hang on. Covered the Brisbane Bullets for 25 years. I got NBL awards. I've not received an invite from the Brisbane Bullets to attend a game since.
It's criminal.
That doesn't make me dirty. I still love the game, but, you know...
It makes Steve dirty.
It does. And
Well, you know, this is the problem that, and now they call it the modern era, the Larry Kesselman era. Thank God for Larry, or it wouldn't be, you know, he wouldn't be insulting it. We wouldn't be talking about this. But the loss of tradition
Yeah.
breaks my heart.
100%.
Guys like yourselves, and again, everybody else that we have named, even, oh God, Gary Lake. You mentioned him. He was really kind of the Courier Mail guy that did it, and he was
Leggy,
a great
yeah.
guy. Played baseball
Leggy
with
did.
Leggy. He had an
Leggy did.
arm like a dish rag. He he played. So he was a catcher,
Yeah.
right? And you know, put the gear on. He was a catcher,
Yeah.
and he could barely get it back to the pitcher. And I was playing second base, and by the time he would throw it, it would roll to a stop before it got there. But I really do wish, and this is something now because they bring in young marketing, publicity people, and believe me, the Bullets have a cast of thousands, right? Where back in our day, I think we had a guy that was writing press releases.
Yeah, of course you did, yeah.
that
That would have been
Mark
Blues
Shroud.
before I came.
Mark Schrader.
Mark
Yeah.
Schrader, yeah.
He was terrific for basketball.
Yeah, good guy.
He really sold the game out to the
He was a great
out
guy.
of the media. But my point is, and look, I don't want to blow my trumpet because nobody else will. But
Bruce blows his trumpet all the time,
Yeah.
Junior, on the right show.
But I wrote rugby league for 35, 40 years, and I was made a Hall of Famer at Suncorp Stadium. I now have my picture and a little running script about what I did for rugby league. Now I'm enormously proud of that.
Yeah, that's huge, man.
But that's
But did you do
that's
that?
how you
Did you get that
sometimes
with Bernie?
look after people.
Did Bernie and you get it at the same time?
No, I got mine 4 or 5 years before Bernie.
Yeah,
I
okay.
was about the 6th or 7th person up there. But and look, it's
You recognise it's nice.
Can I say, look, I'm not trying to start a fight with the Bullets or the NBL, but Suncorp Stadium give me 2 season silver passes. So I've got 2 seats to every game at Suncorp Stadium. That includes the soccer and rugby union test matches. Okay?
Yeah, I mean, because, mate, you
For 5
promoted.
years. For 5 years as a recognition of what I did.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It is awesome.
Yeah, I mean,
And I'd like to see it because, you know, there's a lot that you and all the journalists that covered basketball throughout those years could really help mentor. Because I can't stand watching it. The false excitement,
louder. Say that louder.
I can't stand going to the game. I don't like watching sport under instruction. When to stand, when to cheer, when to wave my arms, when to get louder. I don't like it, mate. I like, please. I'm going to become defiant if you give me another instruction as I watch this game.
Yeah.
2 guys on a mic, and then blaring music. And if somebody happens to make a 3-pointer, we all get incinerated with the. I mean,
The
it's
blade
tired now. It's something new. Release a wild animal. Put a Komodo dragon out there, and everybody get out of its way. But they need some mentoring.
Whenever we do watch games together occasionally, I just know that tirade that we just received there, I know I'm going to get it during the game.
Can't handle
And
that. but-
I just laugh. I mean,
it's a part of the game that I think, hey, you really want to make it.
But
It's
it's
the
sport.
best product it can be, and then list the Wayne Hemmings,
yeah,
right?
yeah, but
Who's the other guy?
Well, it's not
Tucker.
Einstein.
He's another guy that covered the game.
Gary Legg.
You mentioned not Gary Legg before.
Glenn
him.
Palmer.
No, he was on TV. I don't think he wrote. Was he? Did he write?
No, I think he was
Is
just
that
TV. Glenn
Glenn
Palmer.
Oh no, Glenn was a TV head.
Jimmy Tucker.
Jimmy Tucker. Yeah.
He did some
Is he still?
career man.
Is he still
Before
writing?
Lady.
No, he's got out of journalism actually, and I'm not sure what he's doing.
He's
but
modeling full time now.
Oh, in like a red.
for Stefan. I
Yeah, like
understand.
for
Like you,
like
Bruce.
a magazine redhead or
Uh,
ginger nut.
Knee.
He's called the Red Pearl, you know.
Is he really the Red Pearl?
He's a great lover.
Jeez, it's hard like having a face for radio, isn't it?
Well,
Yeah.
you got that market.
Someone
cornered.
asked us. Was it you who asked me? Why don't we do us?
Oh yeah.
You get this producer. Why don't we have us on video? And I answered back saying, I think we're comfortable that we have a pretty good head for radio, so we'll just stay in that space. I think. With that many, we have to,
I just hope that the Bullets, somebody with the Bullets listens to this to find out, mate, it's more than,
Well,
in addition to the Leroy, the Brian Curl, the Ron Ratliff, you had a huge part to
Oh
play.
yeah.
in the
Look,
growth of this.
I'm very old now. I'd go along and watch a game and enjoy it, but I'm not.
Yeah,
gonna,
but the fun, like I was a young player, had got no minutes, and I was playing the wrong sport. I love the game though. Just to have the journalists come up and chat to you, like my name wasn't on the back page of the paper. There was nothing to write about me. It was Leroy and Derek Rucker and blah blah blah. But you had these guys that just treated you no different to the Star. And come out of the beer with you, have a chat. And
I disagree, mate. I think players like you helped make the league back then. You were a very aggressive defender. You did what Curly wanted you to do. If it was throw your 5 fouls away in 10 minutes and knock that bloke on his ass a few times.
I was really good at that.
Blokes like Mick Hill. Mick Hill was a good role player for the Bullets.
Absolutely.
Roger Smith was one of the most
Dogged.
dynamic
We had Roger on
players.
one
Yeah,
of our...
I know you had him in. I enjoyed the few words that Roger spoke.
Have you noticed he's the interrupter? Mid-sentence, he just jumps in and starts talking about himself.
But
I
it's,
did not talk about
but it's his show, mate.
It is. It's the Steve
When
McLeod
I,
show.
when I get my
Oh my
podcast,
God.
when I get my
Hey,
podcast going, it's going to be Tickers
Hey,
Trash Talk.
Are you allowed to share your idea? You shared it with me, and I wouldn't say, or just why don't you talk around it,
talking out
not
of school?
exactly.
Are you talking out of school?
No, I probably shouldn't, because if I don't do it, somebody will
Yeah.
jump onto it. And I think it's a great idea, but I just don't have the skills set to do it completely.
Well, mate, we couldn't be doing this without
No, exactly right.
our
That's
producer
what
over
Can I
here.
can I interrupt you for a minute? Tigger, have you ever been asked to write a book or
Many
ghost write?
many times.
So if Steve said, "Hey, mate, I'm thinking about writing the Steve McLeod story,"
It's just going to take 2 pages.
you can write it all in shorthand.
I think
right?
he's a very interesting
Yeah,
character.
it's a great story.
You know, who would buy it? I'm not sure. His mother.
Well, there's so many tables that aren't balanced that we could use a book or two just to keep the chairs from
I've got to
rocking back
compliment
and
you on
forth.
your studio, mate.
That's because your ears aren't level. You're just trying to waddle here just to stay late. Hey,
right.
Ticker.
Yeah.
I know we've talked a bit about some of the better players in the era that we loved, in which we grew up with the, in God bless his soul and rest in peace, Darryl Pearce. But there's some great players in that era. Like the Adelaide teams were just every year back to back. The Mars, the Ninnis guys. That whole era there was just
Go back 82, the year he started.
yeah.
Kenny Richardson, Brad Dalton,
Yeah.
Ray Wood, who I still hold in high regard as one of the best point guards to play in the NBL. If I was going to go to Derek's, 24 guys.
Yeah.
And of course, Al Green and
Yeah.
Leroy Loggins.
Does Dean Newtoff get a mention?
Dean would get a mention. He wasn't in there in 82.
No, not in 82, but was...
One of the
Well,
he brought something different because he was so
Rebounding.
big. Yeah, he was so big.
and you just can't move him. I affectionately refer to Dean as a bear in a man suit, strong as a house.
Yeah.
What a lovely human being. And I had him actually as a teammate with the Dandenong Rangers.
Oh, really?
One year, and then he went on to play for Gorgon, for the Spectres.
Is he still in Australia, do you know?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I do not know.
So, sorry, Dean, we haven't done any research on that, but Ticker, we've talked about some of the best players. Now, league and basketball, let's just stay in that space because that's what it's been a little bit today. Who are some of the characters, just think of I'll add one out there, like a Peter Jackson, rugby league.
Peter Jackson was certainly a character. Tragic ending to his life, but he was a great Queensland player. He motivated Queensland. He was loved by all the players.
Yeah, right.
And he was a terrific player. I think he stepped in for Wally Lewis in the only game that Wally missed through injury in those first 20 odd games, and he had a wonderful game. But there was,
There's got to be some other league characters that may not be Wally Lewis. Do you know in those early days too, Bruce, there was only one State of Origin played? For how many years was that?
Sorry, just the first year.
Was it? I did go.
Yeah, and then the series went in 82, or 81, and then 82 went to a series, I think. But getting back to what you said, Wally used to drive the team bus, and Wally was a lunatic at the best of times. And
Are you talking about Wally Lewis?
Wally Lewis, and he used to drive the team bus, and he used to drive it through Manly Mall up on the footpaths. If somebody needed a couple of headache tablets, he'd drive the bus into the mall and just drive it up on the footpath and nearly kill half a dozen people. But one day they were going back to the hotel, and Wally used to have this trick that he used to hit the pedal. And Peter Jackson was up the back, and he got up and he walked halfway up the bus, and Wally hit the pedal. Peter Jackson knew he was going to do it, and Peter went flying into the windscreen and whacked his head like this, and the blood was coming out of his nose. And Peter Jackson said, "I've broken my cheekbone, I've broken my nose. You'll have to tell Wayne Bennett that I'm out of the Origin." And apparently Wally went white. One of the few times he'd ever gone white. But so they used to do things like Alfie was a great character. Alfie, legendary, getting up on the tabletops and going into muscle men competitions in America when they were in Vegas, and he actually got third place, and he took all his clothes off. And look, there's many great stories, many great characters. Darren Lockyer was, he had an alter ego. I'm just trying to think of what it was. But when he went out on the drink, Darren wasn't Darren Lockyer. I can't think of what it was. But he would get up to all sorts of mischief.
Mr. Bad.
Yeah. I was in a hotel in Melbourne one night when they started doing that, and I said to Darren, "Mate, I'm a journalist. I've got to go. I can't watch you blokes do this. Carry on," and stacking glasses up and getting half naked. And I said, "I'm going to have to go." But yeah, look, in my business, a lot of journos are out for the kill, and that's how they make a reputation. I made a lot of good contacts through the stories I never wrote.
Okay.
The stories I didn't need to burn somebody or didn't need to, ruin somebody's career, unnecessary.
I mean, you had the opportunity when you had My Underpants and to say that they were small. And he didn't. I appreciate that.
They fitted very
So they fit all right, but they were quite small in the front.
They fitted beautifully, mate, and I appreciate that. It's a great gesture.
I guess we're all privileged, and you guys did it longer at that professional level than I did. You just meet so many good blokes, don't you? You just meet people
Absolutely.
like Yes, you meet the great ones. There's something different about them.
Yeah.
Like, we watched The Last Dance with Michael Jordan. I mean, he's just built different. Like Kobe, built different.
Yeah.
Right? But then there's the rest of us. And you just...
Built very different.
Like, I still hang out with, my basketball mates, and I swear we tell the same stories 50 times in a year, and we laugh every time.
Well, we all get better as we get older.
Oh, especially you, Bruce.
Correct. That was great, mate. As I remember it, I was fucking really, really good. I got to say this about Leroy. These are the characteristics. I've coached two exceptional players in Scott Fisher and Leroy Loggins. And the one trait that they had above and beyond everyone else, once we got on the floor to practice, mate, it was dinkum. There was no shortcuts taken. Everything was done at game speed and lifted everybody else.
Yeah.
Without saying a word, you better be ready to compete now because Leroy's going.
Yeah.
And I got him at the tail end. So we kind of nursed him at practice. But you could just send it, hey, Lee, get over there, get 70 shots, game shots up, and you'd look over there, those are game shots. Right? We got a guy rebounding for him. He's doing everything at game speed.
Yeah.
And, I look back, I'm sure Andrew was like that, and Leonard, the guy, Bradkey, the guys that Sammy Mack, the guys that we recognize as all time.
Yeah, elite.
They share that.
Highlights. What are your highlights of? Let's give them two. Let's do one highlight league first, and then give us basketball one.
No, I can't give you one highlight. So
I need all of his highlights, Steve. I'm sorry.
Being in my position, I was very fortunate to be around a lot of great sport. I was at Sydney Olympic Stadium when Kathy Freeman won the 400 metre gold. Just a memory that
that's an
will never
unbelievable
leave
race.
me. The roar
We were all
from that crowd
very proud.
for the time. I was at the second test in England when Mal Meninga scored one of the greatest tries of the history to save the Ashes series. And I was part of a press contingent at the 1996 Atlanta Olympics that interviewed it wasn't the Dream Team because Michael Jordan wasn't in it. 1996
US team.
US team. Now the thing about
I'm
that
trying to
was
think
that
who's in that. It would have been Kobe. Was Kobe in that? 96? No, maybe not.
Charles Barkley was there. Yeah, those mate, they were all there. Let's put it that way. There were 1,000 journalists in Atlanta, and Ted Turner opened his studios up, and you had to go in a ballot to get into the main studio. 500 people. I didn't draw a marble, so I had to go in the room next door where it was all telecast into the next room. And Mike Coleman, in fact, asked Charles Barkley at that press conference, "What do you think about that little blonde-haired Australian that chased you around in that friendly game?" And Charles Barkley said, "If he comes near me, I'll kill him." And there were 1,000 journalists at that press conference. Never seen anything ever like that. But look, there are other stories. I covered the World Masters sometime in the 90s at Chandler. There was a woman called Mary Maynor. She was in the 90 to 150 metre freestyle. This is leaving the big time and going to this. Anyway, her great-granddaughter lowered her into the pool and she proceeded to bob up and down. I could see her bathing cap come up and go down for a second or two and come up. And then at the end of the 50 metres, her granddaughter reached down and grabbed her by the arms and pulled her out of the pool, and they had a towel and they wiped her up and everything, and the officials were all there, and she was the only competitor in the event, so she won the
world medal.
She won the gold medal. So I was one of the few journos to be there, and I went down onto the pool deck and I said to the guy, I want to talk to Mary. He said, mate, you can't. I said, well, I'm accredited, I'm a journalist. This is wonderful, 95-year-old. Mate, she's got to go and be drug tested.
Fantastic.
So I came out with this great story. 95-year-old Mary Maynard was
She's the
drug
only
tested.
one in the race.
What do you call a guy with no arms and no legs when you throw him in the pool?
You can't say that.
Bob.
I'm not sure we can say that.
Go on. I mean, you must have more highlights than that. These are great.
I've got plenty of highlights, but I don't want to.
Do you know what though? Aren't we blessed?
But that was a great story.
That's a
absolutely.
great story.
I tell you, I covered the Fine Cotton inquiry. I was there the day.
Wow.
I was there the day Fine Cotton, the ring in with bold personality, and I almost had the scoop of the century. I was coming down out of the Eagle Farm stand with a friend of mine, Alison Gridland, not Alison Gridland, sorry. Anyway, she did the race results for AAP, and in front of me was a horse trainer called Bill Naum, and he was talking to somebody else, and he said, that horse looks a lot like
Fine Cotton. No.
Goldie. And I thought he said Goldie, and I'm cracking around. But what he said was Boldy. It was later revealed that the ringing horse was Bold Personality. So had I clicked that he trained Bold Personality, well, they painted the horse's legs, and all the punters were at the fence as soon as they passed the post. Ring in. It could have been a double sting. They backed this horse and then backed the other one as it got out, and all this. There were all sorts of rumours. There were priests involved, bookmaker Robbie Waterhouse got suspended. That trial went on for a year or a year and a half.
Any danger of people getting shot?
Oh,
killed?
mate, it was comical. Hayden Haitana was the trainer of the horse, and
Was he suspended for life?
Oh, I think he was. I think he might have been, but he was in the the trainers and owners bar, 50 metres from where the stewards held their inquiry and had the protest, and nobody reported him. The punters didn't care. He was there drinking with all these blokes, and
the scam was over, but he's still drinking.
But it was that was a really interesting story, that one. But
I think it might be the biggest scandal. You tell me, biggest scandal in all of Australian sport, would you say?
Well, the
no, because it's racing, Bruce. And racing's full of
racing, boxing.
Racing's full of
dodginess.
Blokes, not trying and jumping off horses and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So
and that's why
it had been done before.
That's why true men like us, will never win in a game like that. That's honest people.
Did you say horse racing's as fixed as boxing?
No.
Did you ever cover boxing?
It's worse than boxing.
I covered boxing for 10 years.
Lionel Rose?
Yeah, Lionel Rose. I covered Johnny Famechon when I was in Sydney.
Yep.
Lionel Rose up here, Jeff Fennick.
Who's the bloke from Maitland?
Sorry?
There was a famous boxer, world champion, now, out of Maitland.
Oh.
Jeez.
Now you're pushing me.
That's not Johnny Famechon.
No.
It'll come to me.
It's not Green, is it?
No, yeah, an
Danny Green.
Irish name. No. This is older.
Oh,
this is like 60s. In Lionel Rose's era, different weight division.
Well, that's pushing it. 60s. Tick was only 40 years old then.
My colleague Tim Mallon would know because he wrote a book on this guy.
Ah, right.
Yeah. Anyway,
we're mumbling along. Hey, look, I just want to finish my thoughts on today.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
tied in a bow. Yeah.
Yeah, is that we're very lucky to have sport as this common denominator. Like whether you play rugby league, whether you play basketball, baseball, whatever, swimming, whatever you do, team, individual sport, it's always easy to talk with people that have had that experience of, you know, I know there's a recruiter, he's an ex-basketball player in New South Wales, and he specifically, his last name is Opaque, I think, or something, and he exclusively recruits athletes for like business development and sales roles because he knows that they're going to perform higher than someone that's just come off the street. And he's got a lot of evidence around that, and he's done that. Like he's put ex-NRL players and stuff in their business development manager for selling soft drink, and next minute they're the vice president 5 years later, you know, because there's that achievement, you know, journo writing sport. You know, I know there's a journo who writes general news, but I would imagine the sports guys are more
I gotta
motivated.
say, it's upsetting. After all that you have done for the NBL and for the Brisbane Bullets, that they don't acknowledge you, and that's only because they won't know who you are, mate.
Because
So,
there's so many.
I'm gonna take
We're
it
gonna
upon
do it.
myself.
I've known my wife Ria for 5 years, and she doesn't know who I am yet, but it takes a while.
Well,
My wife Ria.
Oh, yeah, she doesn't know how much sport you've been to. Is that what you're
No,
saying?
she doesn't know who I am.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
she's still working me out. That was just a little joke that didn't go over
no,
to
I
her
got it.
career.
I just now stopped laughing,
But
but
let me leave you with this story, right? You're talking about stories that are sport generated. Alex Leopai was a boxer.
Yeah.
He was a local Brisbane bloke of Samoan heritage.
Yeah, big unit.
Yeah, big unit. He had a big punch. And he got a world title fight with Klitschko,
The Russian.
who was the Russian, who was unbeatable and was a brute and a hell of a boxer at the time. And he went over and fought.
He would have been clean,
Sorry,
with the Russian being clean.
I think he probably
Might have had a bit of.
might have been, but look, he got knocked out, Alex Leopai, and only lasted a few rounds. But he made a bit of money, and it looked after his family. And I met him a few months later out at Broncos training. He was a mad Broncos fan, and I said to him, Alex, you know, you got cleaned up by that bloke. How good is he? And he said, well, I had cataracts in my eyes. And I said, you what? He said, and he told me this just privately before he left. And he said, I had cataracts in my eyes. I said, so you couldn't see him? He said, no. He said, I boxed him blind. But that's what he did for his family and to have a crack at the world title. And I said to him, mate, why didn't... He said, if I'd have admitted to having cataracts, they would have called the fight off and I would have never got that opportunity.
So did he box all his life blind?
No, he just developed cataracts over a period of 12 months.
Ah, okay.
And
That's crazy.
that story brought this boxer from Maitland, Les Darcy.
Les Darcy, well, he was a little bit before me.
Yeah. But the legend lives on.
The legend lives on, Les Darcy.
Well, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to get on to Steve Caitlin.
Yeah.
From and let him know. Hey,
There's
man, we gotta have. You're part of the Bullets
There's
family. Nah, you're not interested.
a young man is going to Steve Catlin, and he's trying really hard to get the ex-players, coaches, and stuff. And
He
Steve's
values tradition.
yeah, he does. He's a really good guy. It's on us.
Before we file this into a point, can we mention Ticker's Masters? Would you like to give that a plug?
Ticker
Yes.
Masters, 21st year this year, played at around September, and it's,
Have you got your course picked out yet?
well, I've lost a sponsor.
Oh,
I think I've lost a sponsor in Ladbrokes, but I'm not sure yet. I'm in the market for a new sponsor, 21st year, and it's a big event. It draws
the
a lot
history of it is all the journos,
it gets a lot of journos together and gets a lot of sporting celebrities from Wally, Alfie, you name them, they've played.
Richard Champion.
Yeah, Richard Champion, Gene Miles. I think I've got an Australian team that has played over the 20
Healy's
years.
been there.
Ian Healy, yeah. So it's just a fun event.
It's a cracker day.
Yeah,
It's a fucking cracker day.
it's a good day. And look, you guys, basketball luminaries, try to say that after a couple of Coronas, basketball luminaries.
Just rolls off the tongue.
Thanks
Yeah.
for having me on.
Mate, I've had a great chat. You are a great man, Ticker.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
And you've always been good to Bruce and I, and thank you very
Well, I
much.
appreciate all the mentoring and actually tutoring on Steve's grammar and the value of doing research.
I just want to know, am I still in the top 5? In your starting
Man,
5?
you're up in the top 3 now.
Oh, beautiful.
You can make our 3-on-3 team.
That's all I want.
Hey,
Thanks,
give me a
Tia.
handful.
Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Wayne.
Well done. Thanks, boys. Nice.